Can you imagine that the earliest record of salmon in North America dates back millions of years? Of course, not a typical salmon back then. We're talking about a saber-toothed salmon. They grew up almost 10 feet long. These days, Chinook and king salmon, they're still quite big, about 4 feet long. But today's show is not about the size, it's what these fish do this time of year that really is just a fascinating phenomenon. The annual salmon migration, the salmon run. And they are a keystone species, so we're going to explore it all on today's episode, episode 33 of Here and There. It's so good to have you along on a Friday. We are certainly hip waiter bound, and it's going to be a fun show. As always, we appreciate your time and look forward to connecting with you as we stream live in the Credit River in Mississauga. Now, a busy show as well. We have John Clayton who's joining us. He's an aquatic ecologist with the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. He's going to give us really some behind-the-scenes story in terms of what type of salmon live here, why they do it, and the balancing act, because they are also a vital part of the ecosystem. As I mentioned, they're a keystone species. Plus, we'll take a look at your full forecast. It's going to be soggy. We actually have the remnants of what was once a hurricane moving in, so localized flooding may be happening in some areas. We'll also get the fall color report. There's still some beauty. In fact, we'll take the HNT, Eye in the Sky, our drone, show you some of the colors here. Beautiful, beautiful setup for today. And a new AKQ, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But today is also a very special day. Friday, October the 15th is officially Global Handwashing Day. Yes, Handwashing Day. It sounds a little trivial, but this is actually something that started 13 years ago, and it's now celebrated in more than 70 countries, and not just focusing on the third world, although that is a part of it, but of course the importance of hand washing overall with soap as an effective and affordable way to prevent diseases. And I think we know that now more than ever, certainly globally, the difference hand washing can make. And science tells us, I was floored about this, that we come into contact with around 300 surfaces every 30 minutes, and it exposes us to almost 900,000 germs. Vern, it doubles for you. I hate to tell you. And most people wash their hands only for 6 seconds, which is really kind of gross, especially these days. So the key takeaway is indeed to wash your hands. And if you've come down to your local river or stream, in particular the Credit River, if you touched any of the carcasses here, you certainly would want to wash your hands. And we'll explain a little about the importance of these carcasses in an ecosystem coming up. But the AKQ for today, the Anwar Knight Query, I'm asking you, if you could be a sea creature for one day, any sea creature, which one would you be? And I was thinking about that. I was talking it over with my kids. I'm thinking octopus after I saw My Octopus Teacher on Netflix. Amazing, amazing documentary. Very intelligent. Oh, you see some of them are doing their thing there. Look at this. Oh, it's just amazing. In fact, there's quite a few that have already sort of circled around us. But I would say, I wouldn't want to be a salmon because they have a short lifespan. I would go for octopus, maybe a dolphin. That's my pick, but I'll leave it up to you. Vern, can you call out yours?
I'm with you, octopus.
Octopus for Vern. Richard? Octopus too? Oh, jellyfish. He did this. I thought he was like, do you want pasta? Ricardo? Killer whale. See, he wants to be the top of the food chain. John, what about you? Great blue whale. Oh, I love this. For some of our viewers who are joining us, we'll say a quick hello. My goodness, we have lots of people tuning in. So Lynn is with us, Irene, Rob, Bev. Linda says hello. Diane says, hi, Anwar. This will be interesting. I have fished for salmon this time of year in the lower Niagara River. And we're going to ask John about, can you legally fish during spawning season? We have Janet, Jerry, Ruth, Lonnie, Tammy's wishing everybody a happy Friday. Also, Wendy saying hello and good to join you today. Laura says, nice pants. Yeah, this is the new fashion here. I have to tell you, though, I ventured out into the rapid part, and it's pretty strong. So I don't want to lose my gear, but I was like, I'm struggling. I can't imagine how salmon do it. Ruth says, the AKQ, anything tropical, they're beautiful and live in warm water. Ah, there's a strategy. I like that. Leah says, well, if you put your line out, I hope you catch dinner. Oh, look at him go. See? See that? Oh, that's amazing. Also, Susan Budd is joining us. We say hello to her. Also, Mary, Inez, Cheryl is saying hi from Haley. And also, Jamie Williams is joining us. Susan Gibbons. And also in correspondence to Global Handwashing Day, Laura says this is not good for germaphobes, and well, I'm one of those. Linda says a dolphin. And Jerry says, good afternoon. Well, not only to me, but the crew and guest. Be careful in that running river. Yeah, no kidding. Donna says a turtle for the AKQ. That is good. You've been living a long time. Warm water, and you've got, wow, you know, you go over 100 years. And Jerry says, I'd love to be a manta ray, just gliding along with no worries. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? I don't know if those days will ever come back, to be quite honest. We got Cindy joining us. Leah says, I'd be a seahorse. And Joshua says, go John. That's specifically for you. I'm assuming you know who he is. Miranda says, happy Friday to everybody, so does Marina. And Jamie says, thanks for coming out, Anwar, from the CVC. Well, that's very nice. I appreciate it. We, you know, wonderful relationship with Credit Valley Conservation. In fact, you know, we highlighted the importance of conservation authorities across the province on my podcast, The Big Blue Marble. So you can look at bigbluemarble.earth if you want to look at that or listen to that episode, because I don't think a lot of people understand just how valuable the authorities, the role that they play for community. But let's get into the salmon run, because I'm fascinated by this. Now, we've seen quite a few carcasses. I've seen different colors. John, generally speaking, what type of salmon are going to be here?
So most of the fish here are Chinook salmon.
Chinook?
There's probably a few coho salmon as well, and the odd rainbow trout, brown trout, and Atlantic salmon.
So there's quite a variety. Do all of them do the migration at the same time now as we get into the fall time?
It varies a little bit. The Chinooks can come up as early as about mid-August,
okay,
depending on the water temperatures and the rain.
Right.
And then the last ones to come up are probably the cohos.
Cohos.
And you'll get browns a little bit later than the Chinooks, and rainbows kind of starting later in October through the winter, and then the pulse for the rainbows is the spring.
Is the springtime.
Yeah.
So that, you know, many people may not be aware of that. There's actually a spring migration for rainbow trout. I'm assuming they're not nearly the same size, though.
They're smaller,
Smaller ones.
Yeah.
Harder to see.
A big one would be 15 pounds, and whereas a lot of these fish are probably about 15 pounds.
Isn't that
and some
something?
bigger.
Yeah, and you know, it'll be difficult to see for the most part in terms of where the camera is, and we don't ask Ricardo to come in the water. He's all wired up. But now and then, I mean, you will see them, like there is one right here, and so, look, do you see that? So you can see them doing their thing here. This is really a long journey. I don't think a lot of people are aware, John. The whole idea is they're coming from the lake.
That's right.
So we are in Mississauga, the Credit River, and it's about, what, 16 kilometers from the lake at this point?
Thereabouts, yep.
But this may not be the final destination.
No, there's a dam just upstream, a kilometer or two, and that's the first barrier that they run into, but there's a fish ladder there, a fishway, and fish can get past that and then go up to the next dam, which is in Norval.
So the fish ladder or the fishway, that actually was built for this reason, right?
That's right, yep.
So if you're saying Norval, how many more kilometers are we talking?
That's about 20 or so from here.
From here?
From here. So it's 35 or so in total. And then some fish would get up even further than that and get up to the Forks of the Credit, and that's about 60 or 70 kilometers from the lake.
So think about that. We have fish, salmon, that maybe, when we go, we're talking about the run, as much as 70 kilometers.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I walked in the middle here and I had a difficult time, you know, to say standing up. These guys don't have legs, you know, and John, you pointed out, some of them, they don't even move their tail very swiftly. They just sort of find a little spot and then they'll take an opportunity and then go aggressively.
That's right. They're, like, we can see them sitting here in this fast water, which, as you said, for us is not easy to hold, but these fish are just staying in essentially the same spot. There's one coming up right here. Right. And you know, the degree to which they've adapted and streamlined their bodies to be able to sit here in this water, and they take advantage of the small current breaks. Right. So they'll hide behind rocks or behind a
breather, right?
Like this.
A buffer.
That water is just that bit slower, and it makes it that much easier for them to hold in one spot.
So what we'll do, we'll get Jason and Master Control to run some of the underwater viz. Oh, we just got splashed. So our friends at home can actually get a better perspective. And you'll see they are quite big. And it's quite amazing to think that the journey could be as long as 70 kilometers. And the whole idea about this is to lay their eggs, right, at the end of the day.
That's right. Yep.
So if they're doing it here at 16K and some at 70K, do we know the reason behind that?
I don't know if we do know why they decide to stop here versus go further upstream. I mean, the more they spread out, the better that is, because they're not then laying eggs on top of one another. And so those eggs have a better chance of survival.
Right.
Some might just be a little lazier than others, perhaps. Once they find a suitable location, they may decide, well, why do I need to go any further than this?
Right. And I mean, science, we're still only speculating, right, on why they do it. Some researchers say perhaps it is maybe the magnetic field in the earth. Others are saying the sense of smell. I was just astonished to learn that they have a very, very keen sense of smell. One report I was reading, they can sense a drop of a scent in something that would be equivalent to 10 Olympic-sized pools.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
I don't know how it compares to a shark, but that would be the same sort of idea, right? Is that these fish are detecting something in the water that tells them this is their home stream where they were born, and then away they go.
And away they go. Yeah. And you know, we've seen quite a few people come, you know, they go on the bridge over there as well. I have to tell you, if you've never done it, you really need to take advantage, and especially if you have kids, it really is just mesmerizing. And I have to tell you, you cheer them on. You're like, keep going. Because to think of the work that is involved, there's no one right behind me right here. You know, the effort that's involved to go upstream like this is really just a marvel of nature. And, you know, it's a blessing that we have accessibility in the GTA and so many different spots. And I'm going to show you some of the spots so you can see that coming up in just a moment. I wanted to connect with some of our viewers again. Cheryl is saying, wow, these are really big salmon. Also, Jeanette says, love watching salmon migrating. It's a great thing to watch. It really is. And Laura says, we're so fortunate to be able to see this. And you're right. That's what I was just speaking about. You know, there's so many wonderful things that happen in nature, and I think we take it for granted. There may be literally thousands of cars every week that go across the bridge here. Maybe they know the river is underneath, but to be able to watch these very large fish do their migration and lay their eggs. And John, do they look for a specific spot to lay their eggs, or is it coming to a point where they're just tired and they're ready and it is what it is?
They look for a certain set of conditions. I think the substrate size, the depth of the water, the velocity of the water. Oftentimes it'll be close to cover, so they can disappear if something comes by, like a heron or something. When I go and walk the river, I'll go back to the same spots year after year, and these fish only spawn once. So the next generation of fish doesn't know where the previous generation has spawned. But I'll go back to the same spots, and some locations year after year, fish always spawn at them. And that's the spring or the fall. So you'll get rainbow trout spawning in the spring, and then in the fall, you get Chinook salmon spawning in that exact same location. And there's some combination of conditions there that make that an ideal location.
They connect to it. And when we look at some of these ones here, these I'm assuming are Chinook as well?
Yes,
So, yes, it's a stinky scene. I mean, we can smell it here, and it's not very pleasant. But it's important to note that this really is a part of nature, because these decaying fish, they are giving back to the ecosystem, aren't they?
That's right, yeah. Now, historically, when the Atlantic salmon were running here, those fish are repeat spawners, meaning they don't die after they spawn. These fish that are introduced from the West Coast, the Chinook salmon, coho salmon, all die once they spawn. So in the West Coast, that was a very critical part of the life cycle of not only the fish, but the forest, because they bring nutrients back to the forest, and they feed the bears on the West Coast. Here, it's not quite as important, but certainly these fish are bringing back some nutrients that will feed other fish. We see lots of gulls over here in the background that are feeding on eggs and dead fish as well. So it's it's all about cycling the nutrients.
Very likely these particular fish, they've done what they wanted to do. They've laid their eggs. I don't know where they are, and that's it, right?
Yep.
So that is their journey, that is their life, while other species, they will be able to do this repeatedly each year.
Yep.
So what's the lifespan then of, say, a Chinook that has done this? How many years?
So this fish is probably 3 years, maybe 4 years old.
Okay.
And same with that one. So it's probably around 15 or 20 pounds. So they're putting on 5 to 10 pounds a year. And
so it's towards the end of their cycle when they do the spawning, 3 or 4. They wouldn't do it at year 1 or year 2.
You'll see some what we call precocious fish.
Yeah.
You'll see some smaller fish come up as well. There's maybe 1 or 2 that are slightly smaller than this that I've seen here.
Right.
Why they run a bit earlier, I'm not sure, but you do see them coming up as well and then dying too. And then you get some fish that are maybe a bit older than that. You might get the odd fish that's 5 or perhaps even 6 years old for these.
And would that, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when you're talking 5 or 6 years, would their eggs still be viable?
Absolutely.
They would be.
Yep, absolutely, yep. But they only get 1 shot, even still at 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I mean, I can see, I'm counting, there's 1 there, there's 1 there, there's 1 going up right now. And it's interesting because when they find somehow they sense an opportunity and then they bolt.
Yeah.
And literally are climbing upstream, right?
Right, yeah. So I think what we see here and this group of fish behind us is particularly these fish have paired up. So there's a male and a female over there, and the male is chasing away other fish. So when we see all that splashing, that's him being very aggressive. And you see the teeth.
Yes,
I've seen them grab onto the tails of other fish.
And they're biting.
And bite and hold on and shake the other fish around. So that fish is chasing away other potential fish that might spawn with that female.
So that is a partnership then. But that is not the norm. Like, we're not seeing a lot of partners here.
There's a pair over there on that higher
the ridge,
that are paired up. So what you'll often see initially is a female will sort of choose a spot, and then she gets surrounded by males, and the males will chase each other. And I kind of compare it a little bit to like a bar on a Friday night in some ways, where you get men.
Yes, there's an opportunity there.
Yeah. And you'll get that bigger, stronger male. He becomes the dominant male, and he'll chase all the other fish away. And then sometimes you'll see those smaller males come in as the female's laying eggs to try and fertilize those eggs. And that adds some additional genetics into the gene pool as well.
I had no idea. I think that's really just fascinating here. And this will go, it really is weather dependent, right? We have a lot of rain. We're going to get to the forecast a little bit later on. Obviously, the more rain, the higher the water, and I guess the easier it is, right?
That's right, yeah. So the fish will come up on the leading edge of the rain as the water level rises, and then I think when it's at its peak, they kind of hunker down because the flows are a little bit too fast for them. It's a little bit too much energy to move.
Sure.
And then as the flow begins to subside, the fish will start to move again. And they like that high water. It makes them tougher to spot. The water's often dirty, so it makes them tougher to spot.
Sure.
These fish spend most of their lives out in a few hundred feet of water.
Sure.
So coming into shallow water like this, it's a little unnerving for them. And you can see sometimes as we turn around or as we walk,
they go.
They spook because they see us move.
Well, when we were getting some of the GoPro viz underwater, and look, now they're going up here, you're right. You know, I tried to get a little closer, and boom, they bolted, they left. I wanted to, that's interesting. Laura's asking us, how can we tell the difference between a male and a female? Are there distinct, is it size?
So this one here is a male.
Okay.
And you can tell because it's got the bigger teeth and the hook jaw, particularly on the bottom, which we call
hook jaw.
A kype, K-Y-P-E.
Kype. That's the hook jaw part.
That's the hook jaw part,
okay.
And the females, which is over here, we don't see that as much. This jaw is a lot flatter.
Sure.
She does have some teeth.
Right.
But
not nearly as pronounced.
So you get a little bit rounder face on the females.
Right.
Whereas these males get these really pointed
I've never seen teeth that big. That is quite impressive. I was like, wow, holy smokes. Let me show you, by the way, folks, if you wanted to see some of the salmon in and around the GTA, I wanted to bring up some of the areas that you could take advantage of. And, you know, it's interesting, by the way, the word salmon comes from the Latin word salmo, which means to leap, and that's exactly what they do. So let me bring up the Salmon Watch board, some of the areas. Of course, Mississauga, there are many spots, but I'll start in Scarborough. You got Highland Creek. Arundel Park is the largest park in the city of Mississauga, another great spot because they have a bridge there. In Pickering, there's Duffins Creek. Bowmanville, we have the Bowmanville Creek. They actually, it was quite a project, a fish ladder there that they built, and they've implemented also a viewing platform, so that's another opportunity. And in Collingwood, you could also check out Silver Creek. So those are some spots, but you know, time is running out. This is now, we're just, I would imagine, over peak now?
Oh yeah, we're in the tail end of the run, if I can use tail end in this.
Sure. Yeah, it's still quite active.
Yeah, there's still lots of fish around. And again, that's an advantage too. If you all come in at the same time, and you all do your thing at the same time,
yeah,
and if something bad happens, then you all get wiped out. But if you spread it out
sure,
over a long period of time, and something happens at this end, well, you still got fish
right
here.
So it will continue.
Yep.
Giselle is asking, what would happen to the salmon run if the river were too shallow? Would they still try regardless?
They would try, but I've seen some years, not so much in the credit, but I've seen some years in some streams where they just can't get very far up. So then you get all the fish spawning maybe down in the river mouth,
right,
or the bottom end of the stream, because the water just doesn't allow them to get.
So they will take, at the end of the day, they'll take what they got, right?
Absolutely.
So that's interesting, because the nature is calling. Haley says those teeth look dangerous. And also Kathy says this is absolutely fascinating. Let's take a look. I want to get into our drone and show you some of the colors in and around here. This is just a beautiful setting here. You know, it's almost like something out of a movie. So I want to take you into the HNT eye in the sky, give you a perspective what the river looks like where we are, and some of the colors. And we'll get into our fall color report and your forecast as we stream live here in the Credit River with John Clayton, who's my guest. He's an aquatic ecologist with the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. So in and around the Credit River, you know, there's many different viewing spots depending on which park you're at. But for us here, you can see there is a lot of lush vegetation. There's the David Culham Trail that'll take you along the pathways. Wow, it's pretty active, my goodness. And you can see the pathway there and some of the splashes of colors, some oranges and some reds. Really just a beautiful spot. As I mentioned earlier, this is really, you know, my favorite time of year, and not only to see the fall colors, but also to see the salmon. And either or if you want to do 2 for 1, today would probably be the best day, because later on today into the overnight through tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of rainfall. And that's something that, you know, you're going to have to deal with. And that means some wind, it'll knock the leaves down, and also as the water floods up, there's a chance of it getting also murky. So something to keep in mind. I want to get into the fall color report. We'll break down some of the regions in terms of your colors. In around the GTA, it's about a 50% color change, and we're seeing that around here too, and about a 20% leaf fall rate. And that will change, as I mentioned, into the weekend as the winds pick up. Muskoka has a 90% color change, yellow, red, and orange. You know, there's 6 various driving tours in the region to explore. Haliburton, 90% with a 20 to 30% leaf fall. And the Niagara area is sitting at around 50%. Eastern Ontario and the Prince Edward County area, 80% color change, predominant colors of orange and red. And, you know, as I mentioned, probably by Monday, it's going to be a completely different landscape. You know, as we stream live here, you mentioned about the nutrients, and certainly it's a food source, John, and I would think that's another thing, that as the fish are moving up, predators are also a part of that, whether it's coyotes, maybe raccoons, and of course anglers. Can we legally fish for salmon during spawning season?
So it depends on where you are.
Okay.
The general trout season closes the end of September. September 30th is generally the last day you can fish for trout or salmon.
Okay.
In this part of Ontario.
Right.
But there are exceptions to that. So in some cases, This section that we're on right now, it closes August 15th actually,
Okay.
from I believe it's the 403 up to Britannia Road,
Okay.
and that's to protect these fish below the dam, which
Right,
is just
right.
upstream. There are other sections, Arundel Park you mentioned, that's open year-round.
Yeah. So you could, that's year round.
That's year-round.
Because that's south of the 403.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And you can fish up to the 407, from Britannia to the 407, right now till the end of December.
Mm-hmm.
So and that
Wow.
changes by river.
Sure.
Those stop and end points.
So you can't just think if it's allowed in one area, it's allowed in all areas.
That's
You-
right,
You have
yeah.
to do your research, and you'd still need a license,
Yes, absolutely.
which is
yeah.
important to note. And I just want to clarify, you know, it means proper fishing. You couldn't just go with a net, because it could be very easy to get these right now.
That's right. So for legal fish, you have to use a rod and a reel,
Yeah.
and it has to be caught in the mouth. So we see a lot of bad things this time of year.
Yeah.
A lot of fish that are caught in a tail or a fin
Right.
that get harvested. My general rule of thumb around sort of where should I go or where can I go, if I don't see anybody else fishing, given the numbers of people that are fishing, I think I'm probably in the wrong spot. If I'm by
Right.
myself,
Right.
enough anglers know what's open and
Right.
closed
Right.
that if you're the only person on the river, you're probably...
Don't think, hey, hot diggity, I got the prime spot.
Yeah, I'm the only one that thought it was a good idea to come out today.
Right.
It's probably closed.
Probably closed. And there are some very stiff penalties, so you don't want to push that. Let's take a look at your forecast, guys. We're going to start off by letting you know that the weather is brought to you by the Big Blue Marble podcast. Listen along to undeniable stories of our changing planet and the amazing people try to save it. It is available now in your favorite podcast player and, of course, online at www.bigbluemarble.earth. John, as we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you, how are the populations of the fish doing right now? Because I know there was a restocking initiative, and I guess that it continues to this day.
So it depends on the species and depends on the river. The Credit does have some wild reproduction, but there's also a lot of fish here that would have been stocked when
Yeah.
they were small
Little fries?
fry or fingerlings. The Atlantic salmon that were lost in the late 1800s,
Yeah.
they're being restocked in a number of rivers. The Credit's one of them. And this year we've had the most salmon, Atlantic salmon, come back that we've seen in about, I think, on record.
Really?
So
Well, that's good
hopefully
news.
that's a good sign for the future.
That's a good sign for the future. So, you know, because as we mentioned about nutrients and ecosystem, they all play a vital role. Water quality is a part of that in terms of, you know, that balance with nature. So if we're seeing healthy populations, that could be indicative that things are working the way they're supposed to, right?
That's right, yeah. The fish rely on good, clean water and very little sediment in the river.
Mm-hmm.
So water quality, temperature,
Sediment is what exactly?
so that's dirt. So that's
Okay,
it's stuff that runs off your property or on a
Right.
construction site.
okay.
That will cover the eggs and smother the eggs.
I see.
So we want to keep that out of the river as much as possible.
Right,
We like the larger rocks and gravel.
Sure.
The salmon love that too.
right.
And then water temperature is very important. Fish are very, very, very reliant on water temperatures. If it gets too warm, the fish that like the cold water will not do well, and
Is there a magic number?
it depends on the species.
I see.
The Chinook salmon, they're probably 20, 22 degrees
Oh.
maximum.
Okay,
Brook trout, which are our native trout,
right.
colder than that. 18, 19 would be preferred.
Well, that's interesting. Well, this has really been fascinating, and we've had so many great comments. Kathy says a big round of applause to you, by the way, for all
Thank
the
you.
info. And Wendy says fabulous show. Each one gets better and better. And she says she's on her way to find the salmon as soon as this show ends. Yes, do that. Try to get out and witness this phenomenon because it really is amazing. It's a gift from nature, and it is, honestly, you will end up cheering them on. You're compelled to do so. Listen, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank you so much for your time today, for joining us on a Friday. Thank you, John,
Thank
and
you.
the whole team at the CBC for the work that they do, because they are an integral part of keeping the waterways, the rivers and the streams healthy, and the whole community benefits as a whole. So this has really been an amazing show. I hope you'll join us again next week. Of course, as the saying goes, where will I be? Here and there. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. See you later.